Another weirdo boycott has failed miserably. Last year it was Hogwarts Legacy, where I think all of the controversy actually helped the game's sales. Most regular people, they heard people saying, oh, if you buy this, you're genuinely evil, JK Rowling, oh my god, transphobic. They heard that and went, huh? What are you talking about? This looks fun. And they purchased the game, best-selling game of 2023. This year, Stellar Blade seems to be doing extremely well in terms of sales. And again, it was the same thing. You had these people say, oh my goodness, if you buy Stellar Blade, feminism, it's literally going to die. You're a fascist if you buy it, all of that crap. Again, people said, nope, this looks fun. I'm just going to buy it. Now, I see this as a great thing, not just because it shows these insane morons that they're a total loud minority. No one normal cares whatsoever what they think. But also because Stellar Blade looks like a decent single-player title. It might not be the best ever, but solid enough action game that doesn't have any bullshit monetization. It's just a game you buy, you get the full product, and to see that succeed is exactly what we need. Every time a single-player game does well and it doesn't have all the bullshit, it's basically a win against video game executives who I honestly believe they like to see single-player games flop a lot of the time because it gives them more ammunition to say, gamers don't want single player, they only want live service. We've got to cram those down everyone's throats and we'll monetize them to no end because players are stupid. We saw EA try and pull that a few years ago where they came out and said, we're just delivering what players want. They don't really want single player, they just want live services, when the true reality is they want the players to want live service because that's where all the profits are for them. And I really believe that they try and manipulate gamers through all sorts of different marketing schemes to try and convince people that live services are maybe even more popular than they actually are, just to try and get especially the kids into them. Once they've got the kids hooked and they get their first credit card, or even if they're stealing mum and dad's already, that's where the money's going to come in, because if you get them early, they'll be forever paying customers. They'll go to your cash store, buy the battle pass, whatever it might be, and that's where they want gaming to be, where every single gamer, the kids and the adults, they're in the ecosystem. They're spending all of that money on these live services. But for now, Stellar Blade, it's another win for gamers, honestly. Single-player game, no bullshit, and it's done exceptionally well, it sounds like. We can see here in this tweet, it is a translation of some sort of Korean report. Shift Up, the developer of this game, they're a Korean studio. And the translation here, honestly, I don't even think it's that great, and I'll explain why in a second. But if we read the start of this, Stellar Blade developer Shift Up confirms both a PC version and a sequel are under consideration. And I thought, yeah, that's alright, but I mean, if they haven't even started work on a PC version, that's not so great. How long is this going to take? But someone on a forum post went into a bit more detail, and maybe they did a better translation, because this person has said, the studio Shift Up, they don't say it's being considered, they're actually saying it's in development. And in this, hopefully, better translation, it reads, in a securities filing disclosed on the same day, Shift Up said that it is developing a major new subculture, cross-platform game Project Witches, with the goal of launching in 2027. Don't know what that is. I imagine that the team behind Stellar Blade, they've made other games. I did a bit of a look, I haven't heard of any of them. Stellar Blade seems like their most high profile for sure, but it seems like they're doing other things. Maybe they'll be worth checking out. But the most important part of this, in addition, the PC version of Stellar Blade, which was introduced last month, and a sequel are also in development. So they are being worked on right now, and that's a great thing. It means that they probably always plan to port Stellar Blade to PC. They haven't just made this decision after all of the success in sales on PS5. So great to hear. I just wanted to mention both because you might see that report thrown out there that under consideration. But just keep in mind that it seems like the better translation is saying it's in development right now, so it could be coming soon. Also, the sequel as well, that they're doing a second one. Sounds good. I won't even play the first until it actually comes to PC, so it's hard for me to know if I'd be excited for a sequel until I can get my hands on the original. But again, because the first had no bullshit in the monetization department, it's just a game you buy, you get all of the content delivered. Sounds like a good thing to me. I'd just be curious to know what the business relationship is if Sony owns the IP and if that guarantees this will be like a PS5 exclusive again to start, or if maybe Shift Up, they can do their own thing now. Maybe their finances are in better order and maybe they can launch on PC, or even at least negotiate that with Sony, because I just feel when you're trying to build a series, Stellar Blade, brand new IP, the controversy probably did help it, like I think it did Hogwarts Legacy, where it got everyone talking about it, got eyeballs on the game, and that may be why it has exceeded those expectations. It just had all that attention, which is great. I wonder if they can say, let's launch on PC, because you've got to launch everywhere to build these IPs. Square Enix, they've talked about no more PS5 exclusives. They want to launch everywhere because the Final Fantasy brand, for instance, it is diminishing because a lot of people don't have access to the games. And let's be real, you may want to play Final Fantasy, but do you really want to go out of your way, buy a PS5 just to play one of those titles? Probably not. You're probably going to go, you know what, if it comes to PC at some point, I'll probably play it, but I'm not going to inconvenience myself. In fact, Square Enix just today announced that they're porting all the Kingdom Hearts games, at least the ones on PC, from the Epic Store where they were exclusive. A lot of people didn't even know that it was on the Epic Store at all. They had no idea, but it's coming to Steam now, and I guarantee it's going to sell more on Steam today than it ever did on Epic. So I see that as another win for PC gamers. Things are going quite well on PC, and I wanted to just speak on that as well, because we can see here the PC games market grew a lot more than the console games market last year, says research firm. And I'm seeing a lot of this, that console gaming is kind of stagnated. I don't have anything against console gaming, but it just seems like to move those consoles, it's always been about exclusives. The PS4 strategy, it was probably only as big a success as it is because the PS4 had a lot of exclusive games and series. Horizon Zero Dawn, for instance. You had Ghosts of Tsushima, of course. You had the Uncharted's, and so on, and that was moving consoles. Now, while that is all great for Sony fans, it is kind of annoying when you have to split all of your gaming across multiple devices, many of which you don't want to really play on. A lot of PC gamers, sure, they could buy a PS4 or a PS5, but the experience, it's just going to be detrimental for them compared to playing on their main platform. I understand some people prefer maybe playing on their PlayStation, but it's just about giving people choice. I will say this, I guess, devil's advocate. What I wouldn't want to see happen is if we lose exclusive games completely because maybe PC's doing so well, I would hate to see, say, Sony go, let's forget about the single-player games because they're not as profitable as, like, Helldivers 2. If we're not going to sell PS5s based on exclusives anymore, we don't need to make fantastic games that really build our reputation and bring people in, like, again, a Ghosts of Tsushima. So instead, we'll just double down on live services because we'll sell enough PS5s on brand recognition alone, and we'll just focus on making as much money as possible from each individual game. Therefore, let's make them all live services. And I do think that's a fair and solid argument for explaining why exclusives can be good. For instance, the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo want you to buy one desperately so they make great games to bring you over. If the games were crap, people wouldn't buy one. Nintendo know that. So if Sony were to go, yep, we're just going to put all our games on PC day one, could they change their strategy? They've already sort of dabbled more in live service. Could we see them change directions? Well, I really do think that PC players have shown they're not going to tolerate any bullshit. It's like with everything that's gone on with Helldivers 2. Sony tried to just sort of push that barrier a little bit, and they thought, hey, our console players, they haven't cared about PSN accounts and all their data being stolen and lost. Hasn't hurt our reputation that much. Surely PC players won't care if we inconvenience them as well. Well, they were totally dead wrong. PC players put their foot down to a degree I really didn't think was possible. And Sony had to change their strategy. Now, they have sort of walked that back a little bit with Ghost of Tsushima. I believe you need a PSN account, for instance. So they haven't totally retreated. The circumstances were certainly different because they were upfront about you needing a PSN account with Ghost of Tsushima, but there's still some problems there from Sony. They're not doing all of the right things right now, but I've got to say, if we look at this graph, some people were thinking, oh, Sony games, they're underperforming on PC. Or maybe people got excited when Horizon, Spider-Man came to PC initially, but now the novelty's kind of worn off. But if we look at this graph, it's a low-quality image, but essentially Helldivers 2 is the biggest game by a massive margin on PC. And then the second one is Ghost of Tsushima, which has now beaten out God of War. Pretty good, given Ghost of Tsushima is a brand new IP. It's got a great reputation, but it doesn't have the name of a Spider-Man or a God of War, and yet it's performed even better. What's interesting about this graph is some might say, well, Helldivers 2's done incredibly. This shows they should go all in on live service. But a big part of this is that Helldivers 2 launched day one on PC as it did on the PS5. That really shows me that that's a massive part of it. All that launch hype, people discussing the game, you're not going to recapture that a year later if you delay the release of PC and a year later you put it on the platform. People aren't going to talk about it as much. You're not going to get that many sales. It's going to be the same for Stellar Blade. There's been so much positive talk, word of mouth, the controversy got eyeballs to it. If you release it on PC in 6 months' time, you're not going to generate that discussion all over again. It's just going to drop on PC, and only the dedicated fans keeping up with releases are going to buy it. You might get some double dippers, people who already played it on PS5, but you're not going to see massive numbers. It's probably going to perform somewhere around Horizon Forbidden West, which is fairly middling for a Sony game on PC, but Sony can't ignore this. Again, PC gaming, the market is growing. Sony have realized they can't ignore it. Other companies, Xbox, Square Enix, they've realized the same, that you can't lock the games on one console. You can't rely on Sony or Xbox giving you a bag of money and thinking that will make up for the sales you lose by not launching on PC, for instance. So we're going to see that change. Maybe Sony will start to release their games day one on PC. They've had some leadership changes. The CEO, Jim Ryan, resigned a while back. They've got new CEOs now. They may decide they need to do this to start making that money, but I don't even think it's purely a financial thing right now. If you've got these new IPs, series that you want to build on, you need eyeballs on them. You need everyone to have the chance to play. Releasing on PC is how you're going to do it, how you're going to build long-term success with these franchises. Capcom have found that with Resident Evil. They've admitted PC is now the best platform for Capcom. They sell the most games on PC, so it has to happen. Again, that argument, that's the only thing in the back of my mind is, will it lead in the long run to maybe less games that I like? Less great single-player games because the Sonys of the world decide we don't really have to invest anymore in these grand single-player experiences because we're not relying on them to sell our consoles anymore or relying on the brand name of PlayStation. That's about it because all these games are launching day one on PC. Again, I understand that argument, but I really do think that PC gamers as a whole, because it's such a big audience now, they're going to reject a lot more of these live service games. The market is absolutely saturated. If you make a great one, and not really my personal experience, but I understand people love Helldivers 2. I'm just not into live service games at the moment, but sure, if you make a banger, people will support it, but no one's going to accept generic average live service and then it just generates heaps of money because of the business model. You still have to make a incredible game. So I hope that we still see that balance even if this shifts and we get the Sony games on PC day one. I play on PC, I want it to happen, so I just hope gamers show with their wallets, we're going to buy the great games, the single-player games that are fantastic. We've seen that with Ghost of Tsushima. We're seeing it with Stellar Blade, exceeded expectations in the sales department. This could be a great thing. We can play our games wherever we want to, and we get the games perhaps on PC sooner than we have been used to previously. Stellar Blade's in development right now. We might get it soon. So it's a win for Stellar Blade, and it's definitely a win for PC. We'll see where we go from here. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.